Hello, World 2 Scholars! Welcome to your first online PowerPoint. I'm excited. You should be excited. Just a quick reminder before we really get into this, you should also be completing that Google form that you find on Blackboard or Google Classroom, whichever platform you like to use for that. Make sure you're doing this. I will be checking them at the beginning of next class, and if you do not have the Google form done, you will not be able to participate in the in-class assignment until you get that Google form done. So make sure you do that, okay? All right, here we go. The Renaissance. Most of the stuff is going to be review. However, you are going to be tested on it again in both in class and at the end of the year in the SOL test. So we are going to go over it again. So what is the Renaissance? The Renaissance is the rebirth of classical learning. Classical meaning Greek and Roman knowledge in art, literature, and science. The Renaissance begins around 1350, which is right when the Black Death was starting to disappear in Europe. The Renaissance starts in northern Italy and gradually spreads to the rest of Europe. Here are some of your first Renaissance thinkers. Over here is Petrarch and Dante Alighieri. Both of these individuals are authors. You've probably heard of Dante's work. He writes, you'll probably have to read Inferno at some point in your high school careers. He also writes Paradiso and Purgatorio, that trilogy there. So pretty famous early Renaissance thinkers there. So why does the Renaissance start in Italy, and especially northern Italy? It really boils down to three main reasons: thriving urban cities, wealthy merchants, and Greek and Roman heritage. Okay? At the time, Italy was separated into many different city-states. Many of these cities, such as Florence, Venice, Genoa, were very wealthy and operated as thriving centers of trade. Also, these cities had very wealthy merchants that could fund artists and libraries. Also, Italians were literally surrounded by Roman heritage. The great structures of the Roman Empire were all around them. I mean, imagine walking down the street in medieval Europe, in medieval Italy, and you see the Roman Colosseum there, right? Naturally, many Italians were very curious about the learning and technology that made those structures possible, and thus became very curious in classical learning. See here, Italy also had a very strong geographical advantage that made them a strong center of trade. Okay, one of those reasons was that it was such an important trading center was the fact that it juts out literally into the middle of the Mediterranean Sea here. Okay, so Italy acted as a natural doorway between the East and the rest of Europe. So you get all these things coming over here from all the way from China through the Middle East into Europe there. And it kind of acted as a doorway. All right, Renaissance values. What are some of the major changes in thinking between the Middle Ages and the Renaissance? The two big differences that we're going to talk about in this class are about the emergence of humanism and secularism. These two concepts are similar, but a little different. Humanism is the idea that the human experience is important. When everyone was afraid of dying from the plague, the afterlife, and since we're talking about Europe, we're talking about heaven in this case, was more important than the earthly life. Now, during the Renaissance, artists, authors, scientists, etc., could focus on the beauty of the human life, the earthly life. Art depicts ordinary people, and life is more lifelike. Authors don't just write about religious matters. They're going to write about human experiences. Secularism, as a term, is very similar, but it really just means not religious. Okay? All right, over here, you have two of probably the most well-known Christian humanists. The one that you have to know for SOL is Erasmus, right over here. He is from what is today the Netherlands, from that area of the world there. He writes a very famous essay called The Praise of Folly. All right, so Erasmus, he writes The Praise of Folly, and we will be reading parts of The Praise of Folly in class. So just be prepared for that. It's pretty interesting. And over here, Thomas More. Thomas More is probably most well known for writing Utopia. All right, so with these new ideas of humanism and secularism, we also have this idea of the Renaissance man. I put in parentheses there, the Renaissance woman, but more likely it would have been men in this point in history here. So this idea is that men should be well-rounded and master many subjects, okay? Again, this is coming from the idea of humanism, that humans have potential to achieve great things. If you read this quote here by this guy, Baltasar Castiglione, you know he's a Renaissance man because of the cool hat he's wearing and the beard he has there. A little pro tip. Alright, so Castiglione, he says, a young man should be charming, witty, and well educated in the classics. He should dance, sing, play music, and write poetry. In addition, he should be a skilled rider, wrestler, and swordsman. So you see there, a perfect man, the ideal man during the Renaissance is well-rounded. He can write, he can sing, he can play music, but he's also skilled in swordsmanship, all those different things there, okay? And when we think back to the idea of humanism, this makes sense, right? Because these are all worldly things, things that can enhance your life, can be enjoyable, can make your life enjoyable. All right. So what most people associate with the Renaissance is, of course, the Renaissance artists. You will need to know a few of these people. They are the ones highlighted in blue. Make sure you know Leonardo da Vinci, and know that he painted The Last Supper and the Mona Lisa. This is Leonardo right there. Okay. You also need to know Michelangelo. Those are your two SOL Renaissance artists there. Michelangelo, know that he sculpted the statue of the David and also painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, which is in Rome. Okay. Some other pretty famous Renaissance artists that I would feel pretty bad leaving out of this are Raphael. He creates the Madonna and Child and the School of Athens, both very famous works. And also, we talked about those Renaissance women here. Women did participate in the art of the Renaissance. Artemisia Gentileschi is probably the most well-known woman artist of the Renaissance. And her most famous work is the self-portrait as an allegory of painting. This is actually that work there. I'm going to skip ahead real quick, okay? So, real quick, this is The Last Supper over here, okay? Painted by Leonardo da Vinci. Notice perspective. This room looks 3D, right? Okay, it looks like it goes back. Again, keying in on that realism that those Renaissance artists are trying to incorporate, making things more lifelike. The Mona Lisa, again, you're adding scenery back here, okay, making things more lifelike. Look at the detail in her hands and the robes there. Again, more lifelike. If we look at, here we go. This is the statue of the David, okay. You can see it in Florence today if you ever take a trip out there. Again, look at the details. Look at the veins in his hand. His neck muscles there, okay? This is the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, which is in Rome. Sistine Chapel is the Pope's kind of private church at the Vatican there, okay? This is probably the most famous part of the Sistine Chapel there, God creating Adam. All right, and there's Artemisia Gentileschi, another painting that she did there. Okay. All right, so we're going to head back here. All right. So the Northern Renaissance. We, of course, learned that the Renaissance starts in Italy, but the Renaissance becomes a European movement when it spreads into Northern Europe. Like Italy, much of Western Europe, when I'm speaking about Western Europe, we're talking France, Germany, England, that area. Most of Western Europe around 1500 had a wealthy middle class, with individuals willing to pay artists and authors to create new pieces. However, unlike Italy, most Renaissance patrons, those that are willing to pay for works to be done, are actually going to be kings and monarchs. Francis I of France, very famous sponsor. He actually sponsored Leonardo da Vinci at the end of his life. However, the biggest understanding that you need to get from this spreading of the Renaissance to the north is how this Renaissance spread. Individual artists and pieces of art, of course, traveled north, and thus techniques were spread. However, the most important invention, arguably of all time, is movable type. In 1440, Johannes Gutenberg enabled printers in Europe to mass-produce literature, thus allowing knowledge to be shared on a scale that had never been seen before. As a result, literacy rates in Europe grow exponentially because now ordinary people can afford to have books and are thus learning to read. That spread of information becomes exponentially more accessible during the Renaissance because of this invention. The printing press, movable type, is also going to be extremely important when we talk about the Reformation and the spread of that movement as well. So keep that in mind. All right, that is the end of this PowerPoint. Leave you here with some art. Make sure you go back, fill out that Google form, have that ready to go, submit that to me so that I can take a look at those before class starts. Again, if you have an issue, email me, stop by my room, whatever you need to do there. All right, have a great night. Hope you enjoyed this.